The hiss of tires on Interstate 75 dissolved into the humid Georgia night as Marissa Coleman, 34, guided her navy blue SUV onto a quieter road in suburban Atlanta. Within seconds, the atmosphere thickened. Her headlights sliced through a veil of mist, casting ghostly shadows across gnarled trees lining the pavement. A vague unease slithered into the cabin, curling around her like the late summer air pressing against the windows. The dashboard clock glowed 8:32 p.m., each tick amplifying the silence. Her auburn hair, still neatly pinned from the evening, caught the flicker of passing streetlights, and her emerald-green dress shimmered faintly, a remnant of the night's triumph. But what lay ahead in the darkness? A mystery was about to unravel, one that would grip you. Yes, you, following Marissa's journey. Tell me, which country are you in right now? What time is it where you are? Drop a comment, register, and let's dive deeper into this story together. Marissa's fingers tightened on the steering wheel, her mind still buzzing from the fundraising block party she'd just left in Decatur. The event had been a vibrant tapestry of barbecue smoke, live bluegrass, and neighbors rallying to save their local library from budget cuts. She'd poured weeks into organizing it. Every flyer designed, every email sent, every phone call made was a labor of love. Tonight, they'd raised $5,000, enough to secure the library's summer reading program for another year. She could still hear the children's laughter, see their faces lit by string lights as they chased fireflies. Her daughter, Layla, would be thrilled when she heard the news. Marissa's lips curved into a smile, picturing Layla's gap-toothed grin, her pride in her mom's ability to fix things. Born and raised in Georgia, Marissa knew the heartbeat of community. She wasn't rich or influential, just a single mom with a knack for bringing people together. Her graphic design job kept the lights on, but it was nights like this that fueled her soul. She tapped the wheel to a faint country tune on the radio, her thoughts drifting to the foil-wrapped peach cobbler in the back seat, a treat for Layla and her mom, who was babysitting tonight. Her phone buzzed on the console, probably her mom checking in, but Marissa didn't glance at it. 10 minutes, she murmured, imagining Layla curled up with a book, waiting for her. The road twisted through familiar strip malls and subdivisions where porch lights glowed like beacons, and neighbors were known by their dogs' names: Rusty, Bella, Duke. The day's tension began to ebb, her shoulders loosening. Marissa wasn't just a planner, she was a dreamer, someone who saw potential in the ordinary. The library wasn't just a building to her. It was where Layla had learned to love stories, where Marissa herself had escaped as a kid, flipping through pages to forget her parents' arguments. Saving it felt personal, a way to preserve a piece of her past and her daughter's future. But then, a flicker of red and blue pierced her rearview mirror. Her stomach lurched. A police cruiser loomed behind her, its siren silent, but its lights screaming. She checked her speedometer. 45 and a 45. No broken taillight, no swerving. "What the heck?" she whispered, her brow creasing as she signaled and eased onto the shoulder. Gravel crunched under her tires, the sound sharp against the night stillness. Her mind raced. Was this about the fundraiser? Had something gone wrong after she left? She took a steadying breath, recalling her mom's mantra from her teenage years. In Georgia, you stay calm at a traffic stop. Respectful, careful. Yet, as she rolled down her window, warm air rushing in, a chill settled in her bones. Something felt off, terribly off. Marissa silenced the radio, the quiet amplifying her heartbeat's thud. She kept her hands on the wheel at 10 and 2, just as she'd been taught. The officer stepped from the cruiser, broad-shouldered, maybe in his 40s, with a buzz cut and a flashlight already sweeping the darkness. His uniform was crisp, but his face was stone. No trace of the warm, small-town cop vibe she'd grown up expecting. His boots crunched gravel with measured steps, the flashlight's beam probing her SUV like a spotlight on a stage. "Evening, ma'am," he said, his voice flat, almost mechanical. "License and registration." "Yes, officer," Marissa replied, her tone polite but edged with caution. She reached for her purse on the passenger seat, moving slowly, deliberately. Her fingers grazed her wallet as she pulled out her driver's license, then retrieved the registration from the glove box, brushing past a stack of library fundraiser flyers she'd tucked there. "Mind if I ask what this is about?" she ventured, meeting his gaze. His eyes flicked to her license. Marissa Coleman, born 1991, then back to her, unreadable behind the flashlight's glare. "We received a report about a vehicle matching this description involved in suspicious activity in the area," he said, his words clipped, rehearsed. Marissa's breath caught. "Suspicious activity?" she echoed, confusion threading through her calm facade. "I'm sorry, I don't understand. I just left a fundraiser, a block party for the Decatur Library. I've been there all evening." She gestured toward the back seat, where a reusable tote held her clipboard, extra flyers, and that cobbler, its sweet scent now faint. The officer didn't waver. "Stay calm, ma'am," he said, though her voice hadn't risen. He tucked her license into his clipboard and swept his light over the car's interior, lingering on the tote as if it might hide something dangerous. Marissa's pulse quickened. She wasn't naive. She'd seen news reports, heard whispers of stops gone wrong. Atlanta was her home, but it had its shadows. She'd taught Layla to see police as protectors, yet now that lesson felt fragile. "Officer, I haven't done anything wrong," she said, hands still visible. "I've got a kid waiting for me. Can you explain what this suspicious activity is?" He didn't reply immediately. Instead, he stepped back, tilting his head toward his radio and muttering something lost to static. The crackle filled the air, and Marissa's stomach sank deeper. Her phone buzzed again. Her mom, no doubt, but she didn't dare reach for it. Texting. Getting pulled over, don't worry, felt impossible under his scrutiny. The officer returned, his eyes narrowing. "We're sorting this out," he said, his tone final. "Sit tight." Marissa nodded, her mouth dry. She wasn't just a mom or a fundraiser. She was a survivor, shaped by years of navigating life's uncertainties. Her parents' divorce had left her and her mom scraping by, forcing Marissa to grow up fast. She'd learned to read people, to sense when something wasn't right. Tonight, that instinct screamed. The officer's demeanor wasn't just professional. It was cold, calculated. His vague answers, the way his light lingered on her tote, the radio's cryptic static. It all felt like pieces of a puzzle she couldn't see. She thought of Layla, likely reading under a blanket, unaware her mom was stranded on a dark road with questions piling up. Marissa's heart ached at the thought of worrying her daughter. Layla was her anchor, the reason she pushed through long days and sleepless nights. When Layla's dad left 6 years ago, Marissa had rebuilt their world brick by brick. New routines, new dreams. The library was part of that, a safe haven where Layla could imagine beyond. Rosenthal, 2006. Marissa's drive to preserve that space wasn't just about books. It was about giving Layla a foundation, a place to grow strong and curious. But now, that strength was tested. The night pressed in, the mist thicker, the trees like silent witnesses. Marissa's mind churned. Could someone have misreported her SUV? The fundraiser had drawn a crowd, hundreds of faces, some unfamiliar. She'd noticed a man lingering near the dessert table, his gaze sharp, but she'd brushed it off as fatigue. Had she missed something? Her designer's eye, trained to spot details, replayed the evening. A spilled drink, a heated debate about city budgets, but nothing sinister. The officer's radio crackled again, and Marissa's breath hitched. She wasn't perfect. She'd made mistakes, like anyone. A parking ticket she'd meant to pay, a tense call with a client last week. But suspicious activity? That didn't fit. She was the woman who color-coded her planner, who double-checked Layla's homework. Yet the officer's scrutiny made her feel exposed, as if her life were under a microscope. Marissa's character ran deeper than her roles as mom and organizer. She was a listener, someone who absorbed others' stories at the library's book club or the coffee shop counter. That empathy made her a natural leader, but it also left her vulnerable, carrying others' burdens. Tonight, that weight felt heavier, amplified by the isolation of the empty road. She wondered if the officer saw her as a threat, a puzzle, or just another stop in a long shift. His silence offered no clues. The air grew heavier, the mist now a shroud. Marissa's hands, still on the wheel, were steady, but her mind wasn't. She thought of her mom, who'd faced worse, evictions, late-night shifts, yet never broke. Marissa had inherited that grit, but also her mom's caution, a wariness of authority born from hard years. She wanted to call home, to hear Layla's voice, but movement might escalate things. The officer stepped closer, his flashlight unwavering. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low, "I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle." Marissa's heart stopped. The mystery tightened its grip, and the night held its breath. The hum of tires on Interstate 75 dissolved into the thick Georgia night as Marissa Coleman, 34, guided her navy blue SUV onto a quieter road in suburban Atlanta. In mere seconds, the mood shifted. Her headlights pierced a veil of mist, casting ghostly silhouettes of gnarled trees. An uneasy shiver crept into the cabin, wrapping around her like the humid air pressing against the windows. The dashboard clock ticked past 8:32 p.m., each second pulsing in the silence. Her auburn hair, neatly pinned from the evening, glinted under fleeting streetlights, and her emerald green dress shimmered faintly, a vestige of the night's victory. But what lurked ahead in the shadows? A mystery was unraveling, and it's pulling you, yes, you, into its heart. Where are you reading this from? What time is it there? Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and let's dive deeper together. Marissa's fingers tightened on the steering wheel, her thoughts still dancing with the vibrancy of the Decatur block party she'd just left. The fundraiser had been a tapestry of barbecue smoke, twanging bluegrass, and neighbors rallying to save their library from budget cuts. She'd poured weeks into it, every flyer meticulously designed, every call a stitch in her community's fabric. Tonight, they'd raised $5,000, enough to secure the summer reading program for another year. She could almost see her daughter Layla, 10, her gap-toothed grin lighting up when she heard the news. Marissa's heart swelled. Born in Georgia's red clay soil, she wasn't wealthy or influential, just a single mom with a gift for uniting people. Her graphic design job kept the lights on, but nights like this were her true fuel. The road curled through familiar strip malls and subdivisions, porch lights glowing like beacons in the mist. She tapped the wheel to a faint country tune, picturing the foil-wrapped peach cobbler in the back seat, a treat for Layla and her mom, who was babysitting. Her phone buzzed on the console, probably her mom checking in, but Marissa let it be. 10 minutes, she murmured, imagining Layla lost in a book, her curls spilling over a pillow. The day's tension began to melt, her shoulders softening. Marissa wasn't just a planner. She was a dreamer, seeing magic in the mundane. The library wasn't merely a building. It was where Layla discovered stories, where Marissa, as a child, escaped her parents' shouting matches through pages of wonder. Saving it felt like preserving a piece of her heart, a legacy for her daughter. But then, a flicker of red and blue stabbed her rearview mirror. Her stomach lurched. A police cruiser loomed, its siren silent but its lights screaming. She glanced at her speedometer. 45 and a 45, no broken taillight, no swerving. "What the heck?" she whispered, her brow creasing as she signaled and eased onto the gravel shoulder. The crunch beneath her tires cut through the night's hush. Her mind raced. Was this about the fundraiser? Had something gone wrong? She took a steadying breath, recalling her mom's warnings from her teenage years. In Georgia, you stay calm at a traffic stop, respectful, careful. Yet as she rolled down her window, warm air rushing in, a chill settled deep in her bones. Something felt off, dangerously off. Marissa killed the radio, her heartbeat thudding in the quiet. She kept her hands at 10 and 2, just as taught. The officer stepped from the cruiser, broad-shouldered, maybe in his 40s, with a buzz cut and a flashlight already probing the darkness. His uniform was crisp, but his face was stone. No hint of the warm, small-town cop she'd known growing up. His boots crunched gravel with measured steps, the flashlight's beam sweeping her SUV like a spotlight. "Evening, ma'am," he said, his voice flat, almost robotic. "License and registration." "Yes, officer," she replied, her tone polite but threaded with caution. She reached for her purse on the passenger seat, moving slowly, deliberately. Her fingers grazed her wallet as she pulled out her driver's license, then retrieved the registration from the glove box, brushing past a stack of library fundraiser flyers. "Mind if I ask what this is about?" she ventured, meeting his gaze. His eyes flicked to her license, Marissa Coleman, born 1991, then back to her, unreadable behind the flashlight's glare. "We received a report about a vehicle matching this description involved in suspicious activity in the area," he said, his words clipped as if memorized. Marissa's breath caught. "Suspicious activity?" she echoed, confusion seeping through her composure. "I'm sorry, I don't understand. I just left a fundraiser, a block party for the Decatur Library. I've been there all evening." She gestured toward the back seat where a reusable tote held her clipboard, extra flyers, and that cobbler, its sweet scent fading. He didn't flinch. "Stay calm, ma'am," he said, though her voice hadn't risen. He tucked her license into his clipboard and swept his light over the car's interior, lingering on the tote as if it concealed something sinister. Marissa's pulse quickened. She wasn't naive. She'd seen news reports, heard whispers of stops gone wrong. Atlanta was her home, but it had its shadows. She'd taught Layla to see police as helpers, yet now that trust felt fragile. "Officer, I haven't done anything wrong," she said, keeping her hands visible. "I've got a kid waiting for me at home. Can you explain what this suspicious activity is supposed to be?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back, tilting his head toward his radio and muttering something lost to static. The crackle filled the air, and Marissa's stomach sank deeper. Her phone buzzed again. Her mom, no doubt, but she didn't dare reach for it. Texting. Getting pulled over, don't worry, felt impossible under his scrutiny. The officer returned, his eyes narrowing. "We're sorting this out," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Just sit tight." Marissa forced a tight smile, her mind a whirlwind. Sorting what out? She hadn't sped, hadn't jaywalked, hadn't even littered. The fundraiser had been a triumph. Families dancing, kids chasing fireflies, even the mayor shaking hands. Had someone complained? Was this a mistake, or was it something heavier, a shadow she felt but couldn't name? She thought of Layla, probably curled up with a book, unaware her mom was stranded on a dim road. Marissa had spent years building a safe, steady world for her daughter, and now, parked here, that world felt like it could shatter. The officer's flashlight swung back to her face, and she squinted against it, bracing for whatever came next. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am," he said, his voice sharp enough to cut through the distant hum of crickets. Marissa's breath hitched. "Excuse me?" she said, disbelief edging her calm. "I don't understand why—" "Out of the car, now," he interrupted, stepping back and resting a hand near his belt. The glint of his badge caught the dim light. Her heart pounded harder. She knew the rules, hands visible, no arguments, but this felt different, wrong. She wasn't a suspect. She was a mom who'd spent her evening saving a library. "Okay, I'm complying," she said, unbuckling her seatbelt with deliberate slowness. Her hands trembled as she opened the door and stepped onto the pavement, her emerald green dress catching faintly on the seat. At 5'4" in flats, she stood, arms loose at her sides under his unreadable stare. Then, headlights flashed in her peripheral vision. A second police cruiser pulled up, its red and blue lights pulsing silently. 2 more officers climbed out, a wiry young man with a jittery edge and a stocky woman with a tight ponytail. Marissa's stomach twisted. 3 officers? For what? "Officer," she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. "I've been polite. I've given you my ID. Can you please tell me why I'm being treated like this?" The lead officer ignored her, turning to the newcomers. "Start with the vehicle," he said, nodding toward her SUV. The younger officer moved to the driver's side and opened the door without a word. Marissa's jaw tightened. "Wait, you're searching my car? Do you have permission for that?" she asked, her pitch rising despite her effort to stay composed. No response. The female officer kept her flashlight trained on Marissa, its beam harsh as if she might bolt. The younger officer began rifling through her front seat, her purse, the center console, the stack of library flyers. Marissa's chest burned with a mix of anger and humiliation. That tote bag in the back held her clipboard, fundraiser supplies, and the foil container of peach cobbler for Layla. It wasn't evidence. It was her life. "Those are just things from the block party," she said, her voice firm but shaking slightly. He pulled out the tote, dumping its contents onto the passenger seat, the cobbler hitting the upholstery with a soft thud. Marissa winced. This wasn't right. Not even close. She stood on the gravel shoulder, arms crossed tightly against her chest as the three officers swarmed her SUV. The night air was sticky with late summer humidity, but a cold knot of dread twisted in her gut. The lead officer paced near the trunk, barking orders to the others. The younger one rummaged, his movements frenetic, while the female officer's flashlight pinned Marissa like a spotlight. The second cruiser's glare bathed the scene in an unforgiving glow, turning her car into a stage for some unspoken accusation. Her phone, now in the younger officer's hand, buzzed again. Her mom, surely, wondering why she wasn't home to tuck Layla in. "This is ridiculous," Marissa said, her voice steady but laced with frustration. "You've searched my car, found nothing, and still won't tell me what's going on. I've got a 10-year-old waiting. Can I at least call my family?" The lead officer shot her a look, his jaw tightening. "No sudden movements," he snapped, as if she'd lunged for something dangerous instead of asking a simple question. Marissa's patience, worn thin after nearly an hour, nearly broke. She'd been polite, compliant, everything her mom had drilled into her. Don't give them a reason. But it wasn't enough. They treated her like a threat, their flashlights and glares stripping away the dignity she'd built over 34 years. The younger officer held up her phone, its screen flashing with another call. "Who's this?" he asked, his tone suspicious. "My mom," Marissa replied, her eyes narrowing. "She's watching my daughter. I was supposed to be home by now." He hesitated, glancing at the lead officer, who waved a hand dismissively. "She can wait," he said, turning back to the trunk. Marissa's fists clenched at her sides. Her tote bag, spilled open on the seat, revealed nothing but flyers, a clipboard, and that dented cobbler. The female officer stepped closer, her light blinding Marissa momentarily. "Just stay calm, ma'am," she said, her voice flat. "Calm?" Marissa wanted to scream. She'd organized a block party to save a library, not robbed a bank. Cars slowed as they passed, drivers craning their necks. One rolled down a window, and Marissa caught the faint click of a phone camera. Great, now she was a roadside spectacle. The lead officer barked into his radio, static crackling over the cicada's hum. "Running her plates," he muttered. Marissa's heart sank. This wasn't ending soon. She thought of Layla, oblivious, reading under a blanket. She'd spent years crafting a safe life, graphic design gigs, PTA meetings, community fundraisers, and now it felt like it was unraveling under these flashing lights. "I've done nothing wrong," she said, her voice rising despite herself. "You can't just keep me here like this." The lead officer spun around, his face hard. "We'll decide when we're done," he said, stepping closer. The tension thickened, the air electric. Marissa held his gaze, refusing to shrink, but inside she felt trapped. The crowd grew, more phones raised, and she silently prayed for a way out. Minutes dragged, each heavier, until a low rumble broke the standoff. A sleek black pickup truck pulled up behind the cruisers, its headlights slicing the night. The driver's door swung open, and out stepped Daniel Coleman, Marissa's older brother, 38, a lieutenant with the Atlanta Fire Department. His tall frame filled out his off-duty jeans and polo, but his stride carried unmistakable authority. He'd been at the fundraiser, flipping burgers, and must have heard about the stop, likely from their mom's relentless calls. His dark eyes scanned the scene, narrowing as they landed on Marissa, spotlighted and surrounded. "Marissa!" he called, his voice deep and steady, cutting through the haze like a lifeline. She turned, relief flooding her. "Daniel!" The lead officer stiffened, his hand dropping from his radio. "What's going on here?" Daniel demanded, stopping beside her, towering over the officers. "I'm Daniel Coleman, Atlanta FD. This is my sister. Someone explain why she's out here with 3 cops tearing apart her car." The lead officer straightened, but his confidence wavered. "We had a report. Suspicious activity. Vehicle matching this description," he said, his words less certain. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Suspicious activity? She's a single mom from a library fundraiser. I was there. You're telling me that's your justification?" He gestured to the SUV, its contents strewn, then to the growing crowd filming. "You've got no cause, and you're making a mess of it in front of witnesses." The younger officer shifted uncomfortably, clutching Marissa's phone. The female officer lowered her flashlight, her stance softening. Daniel turned to Marissa, his voice dropping. "You okay?" She nodded, her throat tight. "Just want this over." He squeezed her shoulder, then faced the officers. "You've got her ID, her plates. Nothing's come up, has it?" Silence. "That's what I thought," Daniel said, his voice rising. "This stops now. Give her phone back and let her go, or I'm calling my captain, and trust me, he knows your chief." The lead officer's face twitched, but he didn't argue. He nodded to the younger one, who handed Marissa her phone with a shaky hand. The crowd murmured, some cheering softly. Daniel's arrival flipped the script. His authority and the public's eyes turned the tables. Marissa exhaled, clutching her phone, the weight of the night lifting just enough to breathe. But the questions lingered. What had triggered this? Was it really a mistake, or something more? Marissa wasn't just a mom or an organizer. She was a survivor, forged in the crucible of a fractured childhood. Her parents' divorce had left her and her mom scraping by, teaching Marissa to read people, to sense when the ground might shift beneath her. That instinct had screamed tonight. The officer's cold precision, the vague report, the scrutiny of her tote, it didn't add up. She replayed the fundraiser. A man lingering near the dessert table, his gaze too sharp. Had she overlooked something? Her designer's eye, trained to catch details, sifted through memories. A spilled drink, a heated budget debate, but nothing explained this. Daniel, too, carried layers beyond his badge. He'd been Marissa's rock since childhood, stepping into the void their dad left. He'd taught her to ride a bike, cheered at her art shows, and joined the fire department to protect others as he'd protected her. But seeing his sister humiliated lit a fire in him, a fury tempered by years of high-stakes calls. His calm was tactical, but his eyes betrayed a deeper wound. Doubt in a system he'd served, fear for Marissa and Layla. He wasn't just fighting for her tonight. He was fighting for the trust they'd both held in their city. Marissa's strength ran deeper than resilience. She was a listener, soaking up stories at the library's book club or the coffee shop counter. That empathy made her a natural leader, but it also left her vulnerable, carrying others' pain. Tonight, the officer's suspicion hit like a blade, reducing her to a stereotype. Single mom, green dress, suspicious. She'd faced judgment before, clients doubting her talent, her ex dismissing her ambition, but this was raw, public. Her resolve came from Layla, whose laughter grounded her, and her mom, whose grit she'd inherited. Yet, standing there, she felt exposed, appalled. In someone's error, or worse. The fallout from that night crashed like a summer storm, fast, loud, relentless. By dawn, videos of Marissa's ordeal flooded social media, racking up thousands of shares on Twitter and Facebook. Hashtags like #Justice for Marissa and #Atlanta Accountability trended locally, with grainy footage showing her standing firm, Daniel's arrival shifting the tide. Local news, WSB-TV 11A Live, ran clips, headlines questioning DeKalb County Police conduct. Marissa and Daniel sat at her kitchen table the next morning, sunlight streaming through blinds. Layla munched cereal nearby, oblivious to the chaos online. Marissa sipped coffee, still shaken but resolute, while Daniel scrolled through comments. "They're calling it the Coleman standoff," he said, his voice heavy. Didn't expect it to blow up like this. Marissa set her mug down, her hazel eyes steady. It's not about us, Daniel. It's bigger. How many get treated like that, or worse, and don't have a firefighter brother to show up? This isn't just our fight. Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. He'd served Atlanta for years, but Marissa's humiliation cracked his faith in the system. Later that week, they stood together at a press conference outside the Decatur Library. Marissa spoke first, her voice clear despite the crowd of reporters and neighbors. That night I felt powerless, she said. I followed every rule, but it didn't matter. I was just a problem to them. Too many Americans know that feeling. But we can change it. Daniel stepped up, his tone firm. What happened was wrong, plain and simple. Those officers are on leave now and there's an investigation, but that's not enough. We need real accountability, not just for Marissa, but for everyone. The crowd clapped, some holding signs reading, "Protect our community." In the weeks that followed, the police department, under pressure, rolled out de-escalation and bias training. A citizen review board formed, and Daniel met with leaders to push trust-building measures. Marissa spoke at community events, sharing her story not with bitterness but with purpose. It's about making sure no one else feels that helpless, she'd say, her voice unwavering. The Coleman siblings turned a personal injustice into a spark for change. It wasn't perfect, progress never is, but it was a start. For those watching, the lesson was clear. Accountability begins with everyday people standing up. Marissa's final words at one event lingered. You don't need a badge or a title, just courage. Speak up. That's how we fix this. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to stand up or wished you had? Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and let's keep this conversation going.